Hello, this is Business Now, reaching you live from iBrandTV news studios in Lagos, Nigeria. Coming up, IMF warns Nigeria's next president may spend revenue on debt servicing. Central Bank of Nigeria agrees to leave interest rates at 5% per annum for critical sectors and manufacturing industries. To ease the increased oil costs as a result of Russia's conflict with Ukraine, South Africa extends its fuel subsidy for another 2 months. Inflation rises to 27-month high as spending drops in Kenya. Hello again, and thanks very much for joining us. Here are business stories making headlines this hour. I am Michael Nath. We begin business now with advisory from the International Monetary Fund. IMF has warned authorities in Nigeria that unless revenue is increased, Nigeria's next president may spend almost total revenue accruable to the federal government in debt servicing alone by 2026. The IMF's resident representative for Nigeria, Ari Eisen, said these while presenting the latest sub-Saharan African regional economic outlook in Abuja. Currently, the federal government is spending over 80% in servicing debts alone, or leaving a paltry 15 to 20% in implementing projects. The International Monetary Fund revealed that based on a macro-fiscal stress tests that it conducted on Nigeria, interest payments on debts may wipe out the country's entire earnings the next 4 years. On Nigeria's fiscal challenges, he regretted that as an oil exporter, Nigeria was not only unable to take advantage of the current global high oil prices to build reserves, but was also confronted by low earnings due to the subsidy on petroleum products. Nigeria is experiencing a worsening debt level as the country's indebtedness is likely to reach 45 trillion naira, following plans by the Debt Management Office plans to borrow an additional 6.39 trillion naira to finance the 2022 budget deficit. Now, sequel to its development finance initiative, the Central Bank of Nigeria has agreed to leave interest rates at 5% per annum for critical sectors and manufacturing industries until March 2023. The decision followed the resolution of the Monetary Policy Committee to increase benchmark interest rates to 13% from 11.5%. Rate increases of this nature often lead to increases in lending rates across the various sectors of the economy. The CBN said, quote, the NPC is of the view that rates on the development finance initiatives of the bank should remain at 5% till March 2023, end of quote. 5% per annum interest rates is a form of subsidy for industry players who originally ought to pay an interest rate of 9%. But such rates may rise as high as 20% per annum at commercial banks. The decision to leave interest rates for intervention funds at 5%, according to the CBN, was a measure to stimulate economic growth in critical sectors of the economy. The contribution of the information and communication sector to gross domestic products fell by 9% from 3.1 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2021 to 2.81 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2022. According to the GDP figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics, the ICT sector contributed 15.21% and 16.20% to real GDP in fourth quarter of 2021 and first quarter of 2022 respectively. In fourth quarter of 2021, the total real GDP was 20.33 trillion naira and 17.35 trillion naira in first quarter of 2022. According to the statistics body, the sector is composed of the activities of telecommunications and information services, publishing, motion picture, sound recording, and music production and broadcasting. Of the total GDP contribution of the sector, telecommunication and information services contributed 79.88%, that is 2.25 trillion naira of the total contribution of the sector in first quarter of 2022, and 82.89%, that is 2.56 trillion naira of the total contribution of the sector in fourth quarter of 2021. Now, the federal government has suspended the importation of wild animals and warned hunters and sellers of bush meat to relax operation. The move is part of measures to curtail the spread of monkeypox in the country. The government also cautioned operators of zoos, parks, conservation and recreational centers keeping non-human primates to adhere strictly to biosecurity protocols aimed at preventing contacts with humans. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development Mohammed Abubakar, in a statement on Tuesday, directed veterinary epidemiology officers, field surveillance agents, and to step up surveillance activities aimed at picking any possible case of monkeypox in animals. He added that the Department of Veterinary and Pest Control Services now partners with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and other stakeholders in the One Health team to bring the situation under control. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council is targeting $2.7 trillion African market through the instrumentality of e-commerce. Speaking at the launch of Agogo Africa, supported by NEPC and African Union on Tuesday in Abuja, the Chief Executive Officer, NEPC, Dr. Isra Yakusak, said e-commerce had become a big industry, citing a report by an online platform, ecommercedb.com, which said that Nigeria was ranked 35th largest market for e-commerce and globally and recorded a yearly growth of 42%. The report, according to him, also noted that 26% of Nigerians bought products online as at 2020. He said e-commerce was one of the fastest growing industries in the global economy, noting that the estimated yearly growth was put at 23% and the industry was projected to hit $27 trillion by the end of this decade. A federal high court in Lagos Tuesday heard how 11 Philippine citizens were arrested at the Apapa Port, Lagos, for allegedly unlawfully importing 13.65 kilograms of cocaine into Nigeria. The Filipinos were charged before Justice Nicholas Weibo by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. They were arrested on November the 7th, 2021 at GDNL Terminal, Apapa Port, Lagos, alongside a vessel, MV Carteria. All the defendants were arraigned before the court on Friday, May the 20th, 2022, on a 4-count charge of conspiracy, unlawful importation and transportation of the prohibited substance. The offences, according to the prosecutor, Dines F. Owen, are contrary to and punishable under Section 11B and 14B of the NDLEA Act, Cap 30 and laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. Although Nigeria's economy recorded a significant rise in foreign capital importation year-on-year by 60% to $610 million in January 2022 against the $380 million in January 2021, the rate of capital outflow from the economy increased massively by 163% to $290 million in January 2022 from $110 million in January 2021. However, the data released by the Central Bank of Nigeria in its economic report for January 2022, which contained these figures, also shows that portfolio investments, money market instruments, rose massively year-on-year by 390% to $400 million from $10 million in January 2021. Other investments, mainly loans, declined year-on-year by 43% to $170 million in January from $290 million in January 2021. Foreign direct investment fell year-on-year by 33% to $40 million from $60 million in January 2021. Now, still to come, travel disruption continues in UK as 150 flights were cancelled. Details of this and more after this short commercial break. Stay with us.
photography business is a very competitive industry. Every year, thousands of talented photo lovers consider turning their passion into a money-making business venture. Especially in a fiercely competitive marketplace like Nigeria, in which it is very easy for anyone to buy a digital camera and call themselves a professional photographer. According to some practitioners, a new photographer who wants a standard studio can start with a budget of 3.5 million naira. However, one can start with a lower budget of about 500,000 to 1 million naira depending on the tools and cost of rent. On the average, the cost of photography equipment is around 294,790 naira. However, the price ranges from around 41,000 naira to as high as 2.46 million naira. Nigeria has a population of over 200 million people with a vibrant movie industry that produces 50 movies per week, generating annual revenue of approximately $590 million from between 2016 and 2021, helping the photography industry as a whole, according to a recent research by the UN. The cosmetics and personal care industry globally generates an estimated annual turnover of around $400 billion over the last 20 years. In Nigeria, the beauty and personal care market could reach 3.2 billion euros by 2021, making Nigeria the rising star in sub-Saharan Africa. Products for hair and body care are predominant on the beauty market in sub-Saharan Africa, where face products and makeup remain marginal but have strong potential. Africa's largest economy clearly has a lot to offer. The Nigerian beauty and personal care.
You're watching Business Now on iBrandTV Lagos. And now to Africa's scene. To ease the increased oil costs as a result of Russia's conflict with Ukraine, South Africa wants to extend its fuel subsidy for another 2 months. To make this happen, South Africa's Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana wrote the Speaker of the National Assembly requesting that a 2-month proposal be made to extend the general gasoline charge drop. The proposal is expected to have an impact on the budgetary framework because it will not be funded by strategic oil stock sales. The cost of prolonging the fuel levy cut is anticipated to be 4.5 billion rands, that's $288 million in lost revenue, according to a joint statement from the National Treasury and the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, adding that it remained committed to the 2022 budgetary framework. The Treasury has asked MPs to raise the public debt ceiling to 10 trillion shillings to allow the state to borrow 846 billion shillings to plug the budget deficit in the fiscal year starting July 1. The Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Uko Yatani, has published a Gazette notice to amend Section 26 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015 to raise the debt ceiling, even as he pushed a separate bill to amend the Public Finance Management Act to change the debt cap to a percentage of GDP from the current hard cap. The lawmakers raised the debt ceiling to 9 trillion shillings from 6 trillion shillings previously in October 2019. The raising of the debt ceiling comes barely 2 months after Majority Leader Amos Kamunya successfully pushed an amendment to the 2022-23 budget policy statement, directing the Treasury to amend the law to accommodate the bigger budget deficit. Now, Kenya's inflation hit a 27-month high in May on the back of a jump in the price of essential items like cooking oil, food, fuel and soap, squeezing household budgets and demand for goods and services. The cost of living measure rose to 7.1% in May from 6.5% the previous month, and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics reported on Tuesday. This is the highest jump in inflation since February 2020, when it stood at 7.2%, prompting the Central Bank of Kenya warn that the measure risked rising above the government's target range of 2.5 to 7.5%. This has forced many households, especially in the low-income segment, to reduce their shopping basket in an environment where firms have frozen salaries as they recover from COVID-19 economic hardships. Now, foreign news. UK's Financial Conduct Authority's Executive Director of Markets, Sarah Pritchard, has said to have said when rules are drafted for the space in 2022, the regulator was considered to beat the recent volatility of crypto markets. Pritchard said, according to a Bloomberg report, the financial regulator will absolutely take into account deep pegging stable coins from the US dollar in drafting regulatory guidelines with Her Majesty's Treasury. UST's price has fallen by more than 93% since May 9 to reach about $0.06 at the time of publication, despite USD's brief drop to $0.97 on May the 12th. According to the United Kingdom's Economic and Finance Ministry, stable coins can become a widely accepted payment method for retail customers if included in a regulatory framework on digital assets. European stocks made slim gains on Wednesday, with the dollar strengthening as investors fretted over soaring inflation and a hit on global growth from looming interest rate rises. Europe's stocks 600 index added 0.3%, with bourses in London and Paris climbing 0.2% and 0.4% respectively. Soaring food and energy costs drove Eurozone inflation to a record high of 8.1% in May. Figures on Tuesday showed a stoking concern about rate rises, not just in Europe, but globally. The Bank of Canada is the latest central bank set to hike interest rates, with economists expecting an increase to 1.5% from 1.0% later on Wednesday. Market players were watching whether attempts to douse inflation by central banks across the world with tighter monetary policy would spark recessions, something that could in turn see rate hikes low. Now, holidaymakers are continuing to face disruption at airports, with more than 150 flights cancelled on Wednesday. Airlines including EasyJet and TUI were among those to make cancellations, although most customers will have been given advance notice. There have also been long queues at terminals ahead of the Jubilee weekend. A transport secretary said airlines and operators, which are struggling with staff shortages, have seriously oversold flights and holidays. EasyJet has cancelled at least 31 flights at Gatwick to destinations including Bologna, Barcelona, Prague, Krakow, and Edinburgh. Last week, the airline said around 24 flights a day would be cancelled from the airport between 28 May and 6 June. We'll go on a commercial break now. When we return, Perpetua will be here to bring you more news stories. Stay with us.